unity, celebration, peace, and the beautiful game. That's what they tell you the World Cup is. But beneath the surface is a dark history of exploitation, corruption, violence, and death. This is Unhinged Histories, a disturbing peek behind the curtain of life. We will expose the horrors of humanity that usually go unnoticed. No conspiracies or urban legends, just real, documented, morbid truths. I've always enjoyed football, whether it's playing on the school field with my mates or watching my own team lift trophies, not often enough. Many of my family members have actually been involved in the game. My grandfather was a physio. My uncle was a coach. My father played professionally and even got an England cap at youth level. Genuine England cap with original nipple tassel. Sorry, Dad. So, I'm somewhat of a football expert myself. Actually, I've not achieved anything. My family has, but I like horror movies more. So with the World Cup coming up this month, I thought it was a perfect opportunity for me to combine two things that I love: football and disturbing history. Thank you for joining me today as we look through some of the more grim events of the biggest competition on earth, the FIFA World Cup. Sorry Americans, but the FIFA World Cup is bigger than the Super Bowl. That's just facts. You can fight me if you want, but I'll die on that hill. And talking of dying, that brings us to the first layer of darkness on our cake of life: death. Death, it happens to all of us. Some of us might be lucky for it to happen in our sleep, or like Frank from the notorious Footballers' Housewives.
Frank, what's wrong?
A relationship-induced cardiac arrest, I guess. Death is probably the most innocent section of this video, I would say. That's certainly true for our first death, as no one was really to blame for Nigeria's Samuel Okwaraji's passing in a 1990 World Cup. And I don't mean his football passing was inaccurate. I mean he passed away. Not like passed the ball away. He died. Yeah, he died. During the match with Angola, former Dynamo Zagreb and Stuttgart player suddenly collapsed on the 77th minute. So, I guess not so lucky 7. After the paramedics that rushed to his aid realized that there was something seriously wrong, they called for the pitchside ambulance. But as if Samuel's luck couldn't get any worse, the ambulance refused to start. So the ball boys had to earn their money and push the ambulance to jumpstart it. Crazy series of events, but not as crazy as some of the things coming up in the video as dictators and governments get involved, so stick around for that. Samuel was taken away in the ambulance once they got it to start. Nigeria continued and held on for a tight 1-0 victory. This was before the internet, so people at the game and the players and all the staff involved didn't actually find out that Samuel had died on the pitch until the day after the event. It's not just players who have suffered at the swing of death's scythe on the pitch, it's also managers too. Moving a bit closer to home, one of Scotland's greatest managers, Jock Stein, or Stein? I don't know. In 1985, Scotland played Wales at the Cardiff Stadium in a World Cup qualifier. Scotland needed a draw to progress and won with a very late penalty. In the aftermath, however, Scottish celebrations and Welsh disappointment was somewhat overshadowed as Scotland manager Jock Stein collapsed on the pitch. He had a pre-existing heart condition, but he'd stopped taking his medication before this match so that he didn't need to go for a shit while his team was playing. So medication wasn't emptying his bowels anymore, but luck was, as he ran shit out of it. Perhaps he was unaware of what would happen if he stopped taking his medication, but I think Big Jock knew. Big Jock knew. Yeah, okay, that's a controversy for another day. The deaths have not always been medical though, as there's been a murder. Okay, no more Scottish accents. Sorry. The deaths have not always been medical though, perhaps none more prominent than 1994 murder of Andrés Escobar. In 1994, during a group stage match with the United States, André inadvertently deflected a cross into his own gaping net. His team Colombia lost the match 2-1, so it wasn't completely his fault, but as any football fan knows, it just takes one mistake and you become the fall guy for the whole thing. Consequently, Colombia were knocked out early, not even making it past the group stages, which was devastating for such a proud footballing nation. And perhaps all that weight on his shoulders was the reason that he was at a nightclub just 1 week after defeat. But unfortunately, that would be the last place he ever goes. At 3 a.m. in the parking lot of said nightclub, he was shot point blank 6 times. Witnesses reported the shooter shouting, "Goal!" which, just in case you hadn't guessed, translates as "Goal!" It was easy to say this was a crime of footballing passion, which I can kind of understand to a point. That was until Humberto Munoz Castro, a driver and a bodyguard with cartel links, confessed to the killing. I thought cartel were just Mexicans. Are they everywhere now? It is believed that the assassination was revenge for heavy betting losses taken by various cartel members, drug traffickers, and betting syndicates, particularly the Gallon brothers. The assassination devastated Colombia, as 120,000 people attended Andrés' funeral. Even to this day, people have not forgotten, as in 2026, one of the primary suspects in organizing the murder was himself murdered. But sometimes, a lot of people can pay the price for one person's mistake. Now I'm going to rank this next section by death toll. Well, not like rank in order of quality, like which death toll is better. Well, I guess less deaths would be better. That's not exciting if I start at the top. Sounds horrible. It's true though. Anyway, we'll start at the lowest number and we'll work our way to the top. Okay, let's just go with that. Don't ask any questions. Don't ask why. First up, we have Zambia versus Sudan in 1996. 9 people died and 78 injured during this World Cup preliminary game. 40,000 people crammed into an old, unsuitable 30,000 capacity stadium, almost inevitably resulting in a crush. Police Inspector General Francis Ndlovu, I'm so sorry if I'm butchering this name. Ndlovu. Ndlovu. General Francis Ndlovu. Let's go with that. Claimed that one survivor of the crush told him that when the gates opened, someone shouted there was a bomb, which obviously would cause a panic. In the weeks leading to the tournament, there had been multiple sabotage bombings aimed at government buildings, protesting government policies. I'm not saying the African police are corrupt, but I am saying it would have been a pretty convenient excuse to cover up bad planning, greedy companies, and a lack of safety protocol. It's harder for the police to cover up mistakes in our next entry, as 12 people lost their lives in another African stampede. When South Africa took the lead against Zimbabwe in the 84th minute, the home Zimbabweans had had enough, started throwing bottles on the pitch, which unfortunately is a not so uncommon thing that happens at football matches all over the world. But what usually doesn't happen is the police then fire tear gas at their own fans, which is exactly what happened here. Good job, Zimbabwe police, good job. There was so much tear gas used that even the players on the pitch had to duck and lie face down in the dirt. So imagine how horrible it was for those in the crowd, most of whom weren't throwing anything at all. But there are also rumors that it wasn't just the bottle throwing that was provoking the police, but also that there was a lot of anti-Mugabe chants, which in a dictatorship, any showing of protest is a big no-no. No. Obviously, most people probably agree that Mugabe was a bad man, but he isn't the last dictator that will appear in this video. So if you love examples of some super strong and not at all corrupt leadership, then stick around. But back to Mugabe. Of those that died, 4 were actually children, the youngest of which being 4 years old. So yeah, it's not that funny. But for now, we move to the Ivory Coast, where popular stars like Drogba, Salomon Kalou, and the mighty Sol Bamba were due to play Malawi, when opposition fans started bickering and fighting before kickoff. To control the crowd, do you think the police A, asked them nicely, please refrain from violence, B, said, if you don't stop, I'll turn this thing around, or C, shot tear gas into the crowd? Ding ding ding, the answer was C. Another brilliant idea to calm a crowd, which resulted in 19 deaths. Up next, we have the Zimbabweans again, unfortunately. But this time, it's not a crowd crush. Now, I don't want to blame one person for 25 people's deaths, but I'll give you the facts and you decide for yourself. 27th of April, 1993, and the Zambian national team is being escorted by the Zambian Air Force to face Senegal in a World Cup qualifier in Dakar. They're making a few stops along the way because Africa is a big place. But at the first stop, some engine troubles were noted. Despite this, the pilot decided to take off. What can go wrong, right? Well, that's not fair for me to say. You probably already know they died. So Yeah. A few minutes after takeoff, the left engine failed and caught fire. Not a great thing to see, but planes are designed to be able to handle engine failure. Hence, they have multiple engines. If one goes on fire, shut it off, fly with the other one, and fix it when you land. That is, unless your pilot shuts off the wrong engine. And yeah, the whole plane abseiled freely into the ocean, and all 25 passengers of the plane were splattered across the sea, including the Zambian national team. Investigations after claimed that there was a faulty light in the system, so the pilot thought he turned the correct switch and the correct engine off. So perhaps it wasn't all his fault. I guess that makes it the engineer's fault who did the whole system. In 2002, families received $4 million in compensation. Now, I'm not saying I would kill my family for $4 million, but that's a lot of money. Perhaps not my parents, but maybe some distant relatives. So if there's any millionaires out there who, I better not show this video to my family. The biggest loss of life on this list occurs again because of overcrowding. This time at a Guatemala vs Costa Rica match. Too many people tried to fit in one section of a stadium, creating what, and I quote, a human avalanche, which sounds absolutely devastating. After the crowd had glided down the stadium and crushed the people at the front, of course there's going to be widespread panic and people are going to want the hell out of there. But in a second wind of misfortune, the stadium was not built to handle emergencies and another crush occurred. This is considered one of the worst football stadium disasters in history.
Oh my god, are you Unhinged Jackalope?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Oh wow, that's amazing. Your videos have changed my life.
Oh, don't mention it. I just try to do what I can, you know?
Is it true that people hype up your videos to climb up the algorithm?
Yeah, that's completely true. Hype, and I'll meet all the right people.
Staying in Central America, there was actually a 4-day war between Honduras and El Salvador called the Football War. First leg of a World Cup qualifier in Honduras' capital city. The Honduran fans harassed the Salvadoran team at their hotel at night, throwing rocks and firecrackers at their window. Again, this is not something that's uncommon in football. It's rude, but not uncommon. Honduras win the match 1-0 the following evening, which resulted in riots from the away fans, allegedly setting the stadium on fire too. But that wasn't the end of it, as they had to play one more match.
One more match.
This time in El Salvador. With Salvadorian fans seeking revenge, they rioted outside the Salvadorian hotels, and this time several deaths occurred. Probably wasn't the best idea for the Salvadorian staff to raise a dirty rag instead of the Honduran flag in the stadium. Yeah, that's not funny, don't do that. El Salvador went on to win 3-0, and anti-El Salvador riots happened all over Honduras after this. Then, a few weeks later, the countries went to war. The Football War, also called the 100-Hour War. 2,000 civilians lost their lives. Now, granted, it wasn't because of the football. El Salvador was small with too many people and not enough jobs. Honduras was big with plenty of open space and less people. Salvadorians moved to Honduras to try to survive. Honduras is largely owned by many private companies, many probably not Honduras homegrown companies, who pay low wages and don't like illegal refugees camping on their land and making their own business, farms and shit like that. Big companies rally and protest against the foreigners invading their land. Ironically, civilians get caught up in the crossfire, as usual. Add some propaganda and voila, you have a war. It's a tale as old as American capitalism in the Central and Southern Americas. Next up, one of Southern America's most successful footballing nations, Argentina, the country of such amazing players as Diego Maradona, Angel Di Maria, Gabriel Batistuta, and of course the GOAT, Messi. He's the GOAT. If you disagree, you're wrong. I'm sorry, you're wrong. He's the GOAT. With such a rich history of talented players, surely the Argentinians don't need to cheat again. 1966, beautiful year for football. Beautiful. It was the year that Argentina were chosen to host the 1978 World Cup, which was all fine and dandy, but fast forward to 1976 and a brutal military junta has taken over the country. The tournament would go on to be one of the clearest examples of sports washing, state terror, and political match fixing. This new Argentinian controlling force became known for their brutal methods, supposedly including the use of torture centers, stealing imprisoned women's babies, and notorious death flights where they would fly inmates up into the sky. An inmate can be anyone who they want. You might have committed a crime or you might just not like what they're doing, but they would fly them up into the sky, tie their hands, feet, put a weight on their legs, and just drop them into the ocean from a plane. But for the tournament to be a success for this new regime, they didn't just have to host, they had to win the World Cup. Strap yourselves in. The leader of a committee set up to oversee the tournament was assassinated on the way to his first press conference. The new guy hired a New York PR firm to improve the country's image. What did they do? The Americans are known for their freedom and justice. Did they help the surrounding area thrive economically and help the poor be educated? Nope. They made the poor homeless by forcing them out the slums, and then they built walls around them and painted beautiful houses on them so it looked nice. They also moved prisoners into remote islands or onto barges. But things on the pitch were also affected. John Sperling also claimed in his book Death or Glory that after Argentina just about scraped past Hungary in the opening match, a military man warned Argentine star striker Leopoldo Luque that it could be a group of death as far as you're concerned. Now, if you're not familiar with football, the phrase group of death is a genuine thing. It's attributed to groups where all the teams are strong, the difficult groups to win. This year's group of death is Group I, because the smell of vinegar from the French dressing room is enough to kill anyone. But that was a fucking top tier French dressing joke. No, but seriously, the French group includes Senegal, Norway, and Iran, all of which are very difficult opponents. Anyway, there's a bunch of rumored stuff that is said to have happened to help them progress to the final, including referees not giving fouls against Argentina and one Argentina player being pregnant. And it wasn't because of a pronouns thing, it was because the local water boy and his pregnant wife used their urine as samples for the players' drug test. Players who incidentally were apparently so high that they had to run for hours after a match just to calm down. Yeah, that stuff is all interesting, but it's not that political. Well, Argentina struggled in the group and they were required to beat Peru 4-0 or by 4 goals. A very difficult task against a strong Peruvian team who had only conceded 6 goals in the 5 games they'd played in the whole tournament. Well, say stop when you think this is how many goals Argentina scored against that incredibly good defensive side Peru. Yep, that's correct. They won 6-0 to progress. Coincidence? Methinks not. Plus, before the game, Argentinian leader General Jorge Videla went to the Peru changing room to speak to the players. A few weeks later, Argentina sent 35,000 tons of wheat to a cash-strapped Peru. Argentine banks unfroze $50 million of Peruvian assets. And allegedly, 13 Peruvian dissidents, that's politicians and public figures who disagree with the government, were sent to Argentina and taken care of. With everything in their favor, it was inevitable that Argentina would win the tournament. But Argentina wasn't the first country to use the World Cup as a political tool. But just quickly, before we get to quite the grand finale of dictators, if you're in another country like me and you want to switch to your native commentary during this World Cup, then a VPN is what you need. I have an affiliate link in my description, and it doesn't get better than NordVPN, the most popular and fastest VPN available. If you purchase through the link in my description, I'll get a little bit of that money back, and it all goes towards the channel. And you will also get the world's best VPN in return, so it's a win-win. Just make sure you do use the actual link in my description, otherwise the rich people will keep all the money and I won't get any of it. So anyway, let's get back to the fascist dictators. Benito Mussolini. If you're unfamiliar with his works, his back catalogues include such familiar things as inventor of fascism, a founding member of the Axis powers, a World War II classic right there, supplying a defeated Germany with weapons after World War I because he's busy mates with this guy, and also being the surprise author of a steamy Catholic romance novel about a scandalous love affair between a cardinal and his mistress. In 1934, the World Cup was held in a then fascist dictatorship Italia. This tournament was footballingly significant because it was the first World Cup where teams had to qualify. Before this, it was an invitation only kind of thing. Footballing wise, it's claimed that Mussolini used his powers to hand pick the referees for the Italian matches, who of course seemed overly lenient with the Italian players and disallowed goals that worked in their favour, along with allegations of bribing opposition teams. At this point, this is not surprising. But I do have to caveat this. Not that I'm defending a fascist dictator, but the Italian team did go on to win the Olympic football tournament in 1936 in Germany. Ooh, fascist friend. And also the 1938 World Cup in France. So, you know, they were a good team. But politically, the stadiums at the 34 World Cup in Italy were draped with fascist symbolism. Fascist symbolic posters appeared all over the city. And quite famously, the teams performed a fascist salute before they kicked off, making the whole thing just look like one of Mussolini's political rallies. Also, just to make sure that Mussolini's power outshone the authority of FIFA, he commissioned a second trophy, the Coppa del Duce. I assume it's Duce and not Deuce. Coppa del Deuce. But this trophy was 6 times larger than the FIFA World Cup itself. When his team won the final, the completely not insecure, bold Italian dictator took center stage, presenting the huge trophy to his winning team. And as a little side note, which could potentially make this the most deadly game of football ever, 4 days after the final, Hitler was impressed by the Italian show of national pride and fascist organization that he visited Venice for the first time. This initial high-profile meeting between the two busy mates-to-be is credited with being one of the stepping stones on the way to World War II. So yeah, not a great World Cup all round, I would say. As we've learned from our baldy Italian buddy, what you see doesn't always represent what is happening behind the scenes.
Fucking hate doing this. They better like and subscribe. Are you recording?
You know, I didn't even get into the list of FIFA corruptions. I don't really want to lean into the conspiracy side of things on this channel. I just want to talk about things that we know or pretty much know are true, and there's things that we can back it up with. So I'm not going to go through all the conspiracies about corruption in FIFA, but I will flash up the list for you if you want to check them out and decide for yourself if you think FIFA is a legit organization that has the good of the people in their heart, or if you think they're just a bunch of greedy old men who just take money to sports wash other countries, or they take bribes or whatever. You decide for yourself. But it's 3 a.m. in the fucking morning. I'm tired and I'm not going to go through that. Even after looking through all the horrific things that have happened surrounding the World Cup, I still can't find it within me to hate the beautiful game. Because it is beautiful. And as a Brit, I grew up with it being an important part of my life. Football is about more than winning. It's an identity, it's a culture, and it's a unique feeling supporting your club. But we shouldn't forget the dark side of history. And all that success and beauty comes at an ugly price. Who knows? Maybe your team will be the one lifting that sacred and ritualistic cup and enjoy it. But when the celebrations are all over and it's back to your day job, don't forget the tragedies that have happened because of this global game and the distraction it can provide for those who want to abuse its power. That being said, whether it's watching your favorite player score a goal or seeing a dictator use soccer to abuse their power, there's always something to smile about. Goodbye. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment about your predictions for the World Cup coming up. And also hype the video. That does something now. I think it helps amateurs like me get higher up in the viewers. I don't know exactly what it does, but please do it anyway. Go, 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 go. Goodbye.